Good morning, everyone. How are you doing? Let's see here. Oops. There. My mouth was moving, but you couldn't hear me because my mic wasn't turned on. That makes a difference. How are you doing? Oh, I just had my Cheerios, grabbed my cup of coffee. Here we are. It's Wednesday. Here where I'm at in Cincinnati, it's going to be like a 77-degree day, which if you live in Florida or Texas or Southern California or Arizona, probably doesn't mean much to you. But for those of us who endure snow and ice and all that fun stuff in the winter, it's a pretty big deal. So today, okay, here's the warning. I'm going to talk about something that's extremely controversial. Frankly, it angers a lot of people. I know that me mentioning it and talking about it is going to anger a number of people as well. And excuse me just a moment. Oh, Mallory is messaging me. She's helping me with something, just letting me know that the project was done. But I want to talk about it let me kind of set the table here a little bit. It's technology related. So whenever we talk about technology, it can be a two-edged sword. I mean, if it wasn't for technology, we wouldn't be able to work from home, recording voiceovers. We wouldn't have computers. We wouldn't have the internet, the ability to work directly with clients and our files. I mean, literally, we'd be back in the Stone Ages. We wouldn't even have tin cans and a string. I mean, that's when you look at technology. Sometimes we kind of forget about that, but technology has brought us to where we're at. The other side of it is, whenever technology emerges, it changes the way things are done. And that invariably ends up hurting particular functions within society, jobs. Like think about factories and where they've come, or the industrial age allowed us to, Henry Ford and his Model T to gear up and do mass production and create these automobiles, which displaced people who sold horses for transportation. It did, and I'm sure it angered, those who raised and sold horses for the purpose of transportation. But yet technology won the day. And because of that, you and I are beneficiaries of that today. And then as technology has evolved within the industrial world, of course, now many of the manual jobs those who do those jobs have been put out of work or reassigned because the technology allows companies to do it faster, higher precision, more efficient, and cheaper. So instead of paying hundreds of thousands of dollars for cars, we can pay tens of thousands of dollars unless you're buying a really high-end, car, in which case you may be paying $100 or a couple $100,000 or whatever. So technology, the world has had a love-hate relationship with technology for a long time. As it relates to voiceover, I think, and in business, I mean, it's not a voiceover thing. It's a business thing. And hold on just a second. My dogs are driving me nuts here. Hey, stop. We all have to deal with noise, right? I have two small dogs, Havanese, and the little one is just, if he sees a shadow move, he's like, he's all up in arms, ready to protect us. He'll fight to the death, He's like that big. The other thing is we tend to look at things one-dimensionally. Voiceover, for those, people who complain about people being non-union and negotiating their own rates and fighting against which is a result of technology and our ability now to work directly with clients. Look at voiceover as a commodity, as it's one-dimensional. And by commodity, I mean one thing is easily exchanged for the other. Remember back in the day, and if you're like my age, and most of you probably aren't, but I remember in my younger days where coffee was truly a commodity. So whether you bought Maxwell House or Folgers, or remember chock full of nuts, that was actually a thing. Maybe they still sell that. I don't know. Or whether you bought the Kroger in-house brand, there might be a slight difference in taste, but it really didn't matter that much. Fast forward. Now coffee, it's not a commodity. Nobody's going to say, they say, okay, well, Starbucks has gone out of business, so I'm going to buy a cup of Maxwell House. That's not going to happen because there's a much higher value placed on Starbucks than there is on Folgers or Maxwell House. Some things are commodities and easily replaced, and people don't really seem to mind that much, but other things, not so much. And think about it. Here's my favorite analogy is the automobile, car. And the way that a lot of people talk about voiceover and technology and how we should and what we should and shouldn't do and how we shouldn't destroy the industry and protect each other. Essentially what they're saying is, there should only be one type of car for sale, and we should all sell the same car at the same price. I mean, can you imagine that? I mean, there's a market for the small. Remember the Yugo? And maybe I'm really dating myself this morning. I'm talking about chock full of nuts and Hugos. It was like this very extremely inexpensive Yugoslavian car a few decades back. And it was meant to be inexpensive, and it wasn't a super high-end car. It had no frills, and it didn't last forever, but it was within the budget of some people, and there was a market for it. And then you go all the way up to $250,000 for a Bentley, and you could go up into Rolls Royce, and of course it's a much smaller market. But the point is, when you go to buy a car, it's not like you say, well, it doesn't matter. They're all the same, and they all cost the same. No. There's a market for each of these levels. Bear with me because I'm about to land this and make my point as it pertains to VO. And I think it's important that I stage this because there is so much vitriol, so much anger over change. And human beings have always been angry over change, and I get it. But here's the thing. Technology always wins. It always wins. It's a foregone conclusion. And if it hadn't, then quite frankly, we wouldn't be having this conversation because we wouldn't have the technology available that we do. People would have stopped it years ago and said, well, we can't introduce computers because it will put the typewriter, folks out of business, and we must protect them. And it's not that it's fun to be put out of business, and I've been in that situation. I mean, I get it, but but generally speaking, for the greater good, we are all beneficiaries of the advance. So with voiceover, the argument is, well, we must stay together. We must have the same prices, and we must do this or must do that. Well, no, we don't, because we're not a commodity. And when people are working or looking to find voiceover, they come in a whole different range of budgets of what they can afford, what they can do, what they can't do, based on the size of their business, based on their business goals, based on return on investment, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So there's going to be there's a market. It's not one dimensional. There are people who are looking for budget type work. There are people, who are willing to spend, $150 or $75 on explainer. Those who are willing to spend $150. Those who will spend maybe $1,000. Depends. It depends. There's so many variables involved, and we're not all created equal as voiceover talent. Some are more experienced, and some are more skilled than others. Some just have the particular sound or style or attitude that somebody's looking for. So value is placed by the market ultimately and not by us. So where am I going with this? Artificial intelligence for voiceover, because that is the big thing right now, right? It's going to kill the industry. No, it's not going to kill the industry. What it's doing right now is creating another layer of the market. Right now, generally speaking, I'm not overly concerned about AI. I mean, it can't replace what you and I do because it doesn't understand context. It doesn't feel and communicate emotion, which is ultimately what people respond to. Now, that being said, I can see where I'm sure it will get better over the years, and it may be more competitive. And it may, worst case scenario, it puts me out of business, puts you out of business. Well, here's the thing: you cannot fight technology. If it's going to put us out of business, it's going to put us out of business. So the question that we have to ask is, as just like the taxi cab drivers who have been put out of work by Uber and Lyft, and I could go on and on. Things that you and I participate in that we don't even think about, that are actually, if you think about it, are really hypocritical when we argue the fact that we should all have the same rates and we shouldn't have AI and all that. Whereas we'll use that technology that'll put somebody else out of work. But that's a whole other discussion. So AI may get better, and it may put me out of work. And I'm in the back of my mind, I know that could happen. And if it does, I'm not going to gripe and complain about it and try to convince people to fight against technology. Because you can't. You just can't. You will never, ever, ever win that fight. So the more empowering question is, what can I do, to position myself? Which is really another discussion as well. But what I wanted to give you was my thoughts right now on AI. There is a market out there. There are people who will never use AI because that's not, they're willing to spend more than a couple bucks. And they don't want the robotic voice that doesn't understand context and can't communicate emotion. So most people right now aren't interested in using AI. The people who are the people who either aren't using voiceover right now, they're doing it themselves, or maybe they're hiring somebody, on a freelance platform like Fiverr or Upwork who will do it like $4 or $5 or something like that. And that's, by the way, not a criticism of those who are doing it for $5 because you have to do that to get started, or at least at a lower price, to position yourself and get the ratings and the algorithms to like you, so that you can up your rates. But that, again, that's a whole other discussion as well. I'm spinning off a lot of side possibilities here. So that market is, again, the general markets. They're there for us. They're going to hire voiceover. Some people aren't going to be able to afford me. Some people are going to be able to afford more than me. And you. I mean, that's the way it is. So where does AI fit into this? Well, there is that group of people who are never going to hire you or I because we actually, we charge more than a couple bucks for our work. However, I would love for people to be able to utilize my voice and make a few bucks every night while I'm sleeping doing nothing because it was in the form of AI. So I would gladly, for the right price. What that price is right now, I'm not even sure. But I would use my voice for AI. And then you think, well, Bill, isn't that going to cannibalize your business and put others out of business? Well, I don't think so. People, again, the people who aren't hiring me now because, I cost too much, they're not going to hire me. They're not going to hire me anyhow. They're going to do it themselves or not do it at all, or find somebody to do it ultra, ultra, ultra cheap. So why not have them use my voice in the form of AI? So that's another revenue stream for me because those people would never use us anyhow. So why not? And then you still have, the market that's going to use you anyhow. And I know I'm throwing a lot of stuff out there, and I hope it's first thing in the morning and I haven't had my coffee, and I hope I'm being coherent. But the point is, technology wins. Always does. Always has, always does. We are beneficiaries of that today. We don't think about that. Oftentimes we'll complain about how, we think that technology is hurting us. And in some ways it does, but it's always hurt people because it brings change. But that change ultimately allows us to fly planes, drive cars, be able to afford cars, to buy a computer for hundreds or thousands of dollars as opposed to tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars. Because technology advanced, things became cheaper. People were displaced and put out of work and had to learn new skills or find new jobs. And that's just the way the world works. It just is. You can not like it. You can be angry about it. It doesn't do any good. It's just the way it is. So again, it's more empowering to ask, what can I do about that? So I would rather ride that train and leverage it to my advantage. And I would encourage you to take the same position because, if you look at the big picture, you're not putting people out of business. You're actually taking advantage of the technology that's available because things change. They just do, like it or not. So anyhow, that's my 2 cents worth. I have not looked at comments yet. I'm going to now. I'm just going to take a peek because this ought to be very entertaining. Yeah, I know I've got light in my face. I'm sorry. I closed my blinds, but the sun rises right in my face in my office, and it's peeking through the blinds there. Oh, okay. From the Netherlands. All right. Awesome. Very good. Hey, Tom, how are you doing? Steve, Anthony. Oh, let's see. I'm just going to scroll through here. Okay. So, all right. I think I covered that ground, hopefully well enough. And perhaps at another time when I'm more awake, I'll make another video or further this conversation. But, at the end of the day, we have to turn from being afraid of change to embracing it and asking how we can leverage it and use it for our good and for the greater good. And AI is not the end of I mean, there's always going to be new stuff. There just is. We have no idea what's down the road 10 years from now, 20 years from now. So, you'll fight against this now, you'll find something else to fight against in another few years. So instead, I just encourage you to ride the wave. What wave can you catch right now and take advantage of that will benefit you and, just move in the direction of where things are going. So, okay, well, I think at this point, we're going to wrap it up. I'm going to get to work on my end. And by the way, I stream live to my my DeWeese members every day. This is just a little something I do in the morning for the general, population to start a little VO conversation, get your day started. But I do this within my VoiceOver Blueprint and my DeWeese members group. I actually stream as I work so they can watch and be a part of that. And so if you want to learn more about that, if you look in the description below this YouTube video, you'll find links to that and some other resources. So hope you guys have a great day. I appreciate you stopping by, and we'll talk to you soon.